Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Boom Broadcasting presents Three from Deep. I'm your host, Jason Calenzo. Welcome to the show. Happy Monday, everybody. Here we are. It is getting into March Madness. I know the selection show was just last night. A few omissions from the old tournament there that are going to cause a ruckus. But today we're going to talk some NBA. So we have a new show coming out on Monday that's going to dive into college basketball with my man Aaron and my man Carson. Going to take the helm at 5:30s from now on. So you got to check that out on Monday today, 5:30. Carson and Aaron's new show. We're going to be talking all the March Madness basketball coming up. So, guys, if you haven't jumped on to Boom Broadcasting yet, you got to do it, man. Get on the bandwagon now. Great content providers here. So, like, subscribe, Boom Broadcasting, YouTube channel. Check it out. We're just growing exponentially. You got to love it. So, I appreciate you guys being here from Three from Deep. And I'm not alone. I brought myself in a guest because the NBA is getting hot right now. So I had to bring in my friend from Drew Code Sports Talk, Mr. Cody Johnson. Here we go. What's going on, Cody?
What's going on, my friend? How you doing?
Fantastic, man. Welcome to the show. Happy Monday.
Yes, sir.
Jumping into some NBA basketball. How you liking the season so far?
You know what? This season is full of roller coasters, and just when you think you've kind of got a map of it figured out, it completely changes, is what we're going to talk about today in the show. But yeah, I mean, the NBA is now kind of getting into the fun part of it, especially with playoff implications on the line. So it's all looking good, man.
It has been a roller coaster of the season. That is for sure. So first things first, we're going to jump into today is on Sunday, the Magic snapped the Cleveland Cavaliers 16-game winning streak, 108-103. Magic holding on to that eighth spot there in the East. Paulo Banchero drops 24, 11, and 7. Franz Wagner, 22, 8, and 2. Anthony Black coming off the bench with 17 points. Mitchell, 23, 6, and 5. Garland, 19 points. Allen, 20 and 12, but not enough. The streak ends at 16, but still impressive nonetheless. 2 15-game winning streaks this season. So Cleveland already clinching the division, 56 and 11 right now. So number one team in the East, best record overall. Cody, is this Cleveland's year to finally make it back to the finals? The last time they were there, 2016, the LeBron beating Golden State, the block, this is for you, Cleveland. That's the last time they were there. Is this the year for Cleveland to get back to the finals?
I hate to say this, man, but I don't think Cleveland gets to the finals. I don't think they represent the East. Don't get me wrong. They are having one of the better regular seasons that any team has seen. Their win totals that they've accumulated this year has more than exceeded last year. So you can see the improvement. Obviously, adding DeAndre Hunter to the game or to their team has really changed the dynamic of the Cavaliers. But I trust Boston too much. Like Boston, I know is still I think it's 6 games below the Cavs right now in the East. But you look at Boston, and I would argue that they haven't even gotten into the best part of their game, and that probably won't activate until they actually get in the playoffs. And I think still, until otherwise, Boston is the team to beat in the East. And they have a really good defense. They shoot the lights out, and they've got depth in their bench to come out or to neutralize whatever you do to them. And don't get me wrong, the Cavs have the length. They've got the defense. But I think if it was a 7-game series with Boston and the Cavaliers, I trust Boston. And I just think that Boston is the better team in the East. It just so happens that the Cavaliers have won almost every winnable game that they have, and Boston just through injury and still trying to just come into their own as playoff season is right around the corner. I still trust Boston more than anything.
And that's pretty interesting too. I mean, Cleveland right now is playing team basketball. I know we talked earlier about the MVP race, and a lot of times we talk about, okay, there's at least one superstar on a team, and Cleveland has Donovan Mitchell, but he's not known for being an MVP candidate right now, which is interesting because you got Garland, you
Mm-hmm.
got Allen. So is there one guy on that Cleveland team, do you think, that could change that tide, that can get them over that Boston hump?
Man, that's a really good question. I think two players that come to mind is Evan Mobley for sure, with his length and his shooting, the ability for him to be very versatile when it comes to the offensive side and the defensive side of the ball. And then also, too, I mentioned him at the top of the segment of DeAndre Hunter. I think that he brings a level to this team that the Cavs don't really have. They have like a reliable sixth man that they can call upon who's getting starter minutes, but he can come in with the second unit and facilitate a lead and lead that offense. And then when you have, you know, quote unquote, the death lineup, and you keep him in there with Mitchell and with Garland and with Allen and with Mobley, like they are all shooters and they're all lengthy, and they can really disturb some teams. So I think that Hunter and Mobley are some two X factors that I think would be the difference maker between how the Cavs looked last year to this year, which is why in the playoffs, like, they're going to go far. I just don't know if they're enough to get over Boston, because Boston, I think you and I can both agree, Boston is just on another level when it comes to the East. And right now they're just in second place because of record, but that doesn't mean that that's where they are in terms of like best teams to play in the East. Like, record wise, they're the second best, but they can probably topple the Cavs. And a lot of his experience too, I'll say.
Right. And I know they just got Porzingis back too from that odd injury that he had. So, I mean, Boston is always dangerous. Jason Tatum. And one of the questions I've always had is why Jason Tatum doesn't get a lot of the MVP love. He's not, talked about when you talk about the greats of the game right now. You hear Luka, you hear LeBron, you hear a lot of these other big names, but Jason Tatum kind of gets lost, which I always find interesting. I don't know if it's just because it's a Celtics thing or it's because just the way he is. But I do have the Cleveland Cavaliers getting over the hump. They are just playing way too well to not be able to get over this hump. The East, to me, is deep, too. This is probably the deepest I've ever seen the East in the NBA right now. Usually the West was always the heavier, harder division to get out of. But to me right now, especially the way Detroit is playing, I think Detroit can come in and probably beat anybody at any given Sunday. The Bucks, you cannot forget about them. They do have some muscle memory. Giannis is still one of the greatest players in the world. So, I mean, you can't forget him with Doc Rivers. Heck, we had them written off at the beginning of the season. They wanted to fire everybody. But now they're right there. So to me, the East is going to be super tough. So I could see the Cavaliers, especially being that first place team, getting kind of the easier road through the playoffs. I think Boston's probably going to have the little more difficult road being in that 2 seed. I'm hoping my Knicks can get healthy, and we'll talk about that here later on. But I think it's going to be tough for them to get out of the East. But I do have Cleveland. I think they are just playing team basketball from top to bottom, the bench, etc. It is going to be hard to beat them, and Boston's going to have a tough time trying to repeat as champions, man. So
no doubt
it remains to be seen. So, but Cleveland, this is for you. It's going to be an exciting season, and I know if they don't make it to the finals, it's going to be pretty disappointing. So, do you have Boston as your main team coming out of the East? Or who would be a sleeper team? Someone besides Boston or Cleveland, who else would you have that may be able to make some noise coming out of that East?
You know what? So I have two teams that come to mind. One is Milwaukee. I think with Giannis, of course, you have Dame. And I do think that Kyle Kuzma addition is a little undersold. I do think that he's still working his way in that team. And I think give it some time, and he could be a versatile option, especially when it comes to like rebounding because his length, and then shooting. I think people will be surprised by how many tough shots that he can make when called upon. But I think Milwaukee needs to be respected at least. I don't know if they're strong enough to outlast in the East unless it's injuries amongst other top teams. But I think Milwaukee is a team that people shouldn't sleep on. And I'm going to give you a little bit of props on this. Your Knicks. I think if Jalen Brunson can come in healthy, if Cat can be dominant, and with the players that they have, and I like the fact that Mikal Bridges has gone to Tim Thibodeau, and said, hey, listen, we need to talk about the minutes for the starters and the minutes for the bench, which is something that I had posed to you. I think the first time that you and I had, done a show together, where I said, are you concerned with the minutes that Thibodeau puts on these players? And that's why they kind of like fall off towards the end of the season. And I'm glad that Bridges had said something, and I hope that it's taken to heart with Thibodeau, because honestly, the Knicks, with how they play defense and how Brunson can really facilitate offense, they could be a sleeper team that could get, I wouldn't be surprised if I saw them pushing whatever team on the cusp to eliminating them in the semifinals, or even being represented in the conference finals. Like, I think they're that talented, but Thibodeau needs to figure out how to keep the starters preserved. And I'm concerned if Brunson goes cold, Cat looks timid, who do you call upon? I mean, do you trust OG? Do you trust Hart? Do you trust Bridges? I don't know, but with the way that Jalen Brunson has been playing, he needs to come back from this injury quickly, because I really do think seeding is going to play a factor into this. And I think the Knicks could be a sleeper. If everything just kind of hums together at the right moment, I think the Knicks could make some noise.
And I hope they do, of course, as a Knicks fan. And to me, this is the reason why, and I said this on one of my other shows, this is the reason why we did the Cat trade. Karl Anthony Towns needs to be that dominant guy. He needs to be that 30-20 guy while Jalen's out, and really become the leader of that team. So down the stretch run, he has the confidence that he can perform that way. So mine is the Orlando Magic. I had them as my sleeper team when we first started the season, because Paulo Blanchero, Franz Wagner, they have a solid team there. And then you had those injuries. So Orlando, being that they're 8th right now with that play-in, they would have been higher seeded if they hadn't had all those injuries in the beginning of the season. If Paulo didn't go down, if Franz didn't go down, but now that these guys are back and they're getting healthy, watch out for Orlando. I think they are going to be probably the toughest out of any of the higher seeded teams, because I could see Orlando upsetting a top seeded team because of the talent they have there. They are young. They don't have the winning muscle memory. I know sometimes you got to have the experience of winning to kind of get over those humps, but don't sleep on Orlando. Watch out. I do like the Pistons too, the way they're playing, going from essentially worst to playing really unbelievable basketball. Cade Cunningham, a number 1 draft pick, finally showing why. But to me, the East is going to be a tougher gauntlet than most people give credit to. So, but because you got that hat on, we're going to jump into the West. And, at least we talked about Cleveland first, because I know Sir Charles Barkley does not like everybody talking about the Lakers and Golden State. He's like, dude, why is nobody talking about Cleveland? So we finally did Cleveland first.
Right.
So now we're going to jump into the Lake show. So your Lakers on Sunday ended that 4-game slide, beating the Suns 107-96. Luka is just doing Luka things, 33, 11, and 8 assists. Reeves, 28. Jackson Hayes showing up, dropping in 19. They needed that bounce back. Again, being without LeBron, 0-4 in that road trip, but coming home and getting a much-needed victory. So as a Lakers fan, and what you've seen so far the last 4 or 5 games, especially without LeBron, even when LeBron comes back, do you think that is enough for the Lakers to make some noise in the playoffs?
If LeBron comes back healthy, I think so. I mean, some of the notes I put down as far as teams in the West that I could see the Lakers beating would be like the Timberwolves, the Grizzlies, the Clippers. Those teams, if we matched up with them in the playoffs, I do think that the Lakers could get past those teams. What my concern is we're undersized. We have 2 big men, Jackson Hayes and then Alex Lynn. Alex Lynn doesn't play a ton of minutes. Jackson Hayes, he just came back from an injury, so who knows if he can stay healthy. But I think what I'm concerned with is we just saw like the Lakers go through a road trip that was also filled with injuries. Like we didn't have we still don't have LeBron. We didn't have Jackson Hayes, and we were just shorthanded. And yeah, sure, we scored a lot, but we had no defensive presence. We have no rebounding presence, which is what was my main concern when we were even talking about getting into the playoffs, is when it comes time to it, we really don't have a big that can go and grab those boards. It's really LeBron and Luka who are attacking the boards and essentially leading this team in rebounding, which is great. But also that makes it very difficult because they're also the ones sparking the offense. And you got LeBron, 40-year-old LeBron, playing both ends of the court, which is great. But, when it comes to like athletic guards and athletic forwards, the Lakers are very vulnerable. We don't have great perimeter defense. We have to really stay as a team unit. But like a team like Boston that we kicked off the road trip with, they really exploited the Lakers on what their weaknesses are. They don't have length. They can't guard big wing players that can shoot or put it on the court. So they were really exposed. And you can see like the Lakers, tried to come back and make it a game, but the Celtics were still able to kind of put it away a little bit. And it came with shooting and defense. Like once they had Jaylen Brown kind of shut down Luka and Austin Reeves, the Lakers really didn't have anything moving for them. And that's just because, when you got a two-way player like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, who's underrated on the defensive side, the Lakers, I think they could surprise some people, but I'd be concerned when they go up against like the Nuggets. I'm concerned when they go up against, the Warriors specifically, especially how hot they are with Jimmy Butler. I'm concerned when they go up against OKC. Like I think the Lakers can push OKC to like 6 or 7 games, like if it came to like a series clincher like that. But I don't know because OKC is full of youth, full of athletic, lengthy players, and I don't know if the Lakers have enough to keep up with that. But I need to see how LeBron looks when he comes back because we're about 15 games away from the end of the season, and we really need to see like what our lineups are. Can JJ Redick get everyone playing defense like we did earlier this year? And I don't know. I think we're just too shorthanded, but we'll see. I think we could make some noise, but again, I more or less predicted that I can see them getting into the semifinals, maybe pushing into conference. But as far as like representing the West in the finals, I'm not 100% confident. I think we just don't have the shooting for it.
Right. And I love your optimism. At least you're giving them a chance. I think they get swept. I really think there's some glaring issues with the Lakers, especially in the West. Look, the West is lengthy. You go against the Nuggets, you're going against the dad bod god down low who snatches up rebounds.
Yeah.
Rudy Gobert is back for the Wolves. The Wolves were in the Western Conference Finals last year. So they're finally getting healthy, and you got him and Ant playing very well. You got OKC, Chet Holmgren down low. So, you do have a lot of length in the West and a lot of athleticism in the West. And you have Luka, who is kind of finally getting his legs under him and can give you 30. But I am super concerned about LeBron James at 40 years old coming back from, a groin injury. Is this going to linger? How healthy is he going to be? Is he going to be in game shape by time you guys get to the playoffs? I unfortunately see the Lakers getting swept in the first series because I don't think they have enough there. And my other concern about this, and I want to pose this question to you, is, this is kind of a sign of things to come with this Lakers team. Yes, the Luka trade was amazing. You guys got one of the top 5 NBA players in the league right now. Just turned 26 years old. But when LeBron goes away, this is Luka's team now. Do the Lakers need to go out and be aggressive to find another superstar player? Do they get aggressive and go try to get a 36, 37-year-old Kevin Durant? Do they try to go out and try to make some more trades? Like, what do the Lakers need to do with the superstar to build around Luka? Because right now, this 4 or 5 game stretch has been concerning because there's Luka, you got Reeves, and then you got some kind of just okay role players. They're missing something. So what do you think? Do you think they really need to go out and get that Robin to Luka's Batman?
I think so. Listen, like LeBron is not going to stick around for 5 seasons and help Luka get in the playoffs and skate by. So I think like what the Lakers game plan is going to be this offseason is they're going to look to tailor this team around Luka's skill set. And the good thing about having Luka and LeBron is they mirror each other similarly. They're both ball dominant. They create for others, or rebounders. They're both big and tall, and LeBron is not as good as a shooter as Luka, so I think that kind of makes the dynamic a little bit different. But I do think that the Lakers can not only build the roster around Luka's skill set and him for the future, but I do think it'll complement LeBron as well. What the Lakers need is they need a guy that's like a 3-and-D type of guy that's youthful, not an older one, not one that's past, his retirement date. They need someone that's still young, youthful, up and coming. And they also need a big that could average like a double-double a game. Like we need that kind of interior presence in there because sure, we can spread the floor, but I'm sure that there are some talented wings out there that not only you can put them down low, but you can put them on the outside and make them a threat to kind of open up the floor. But with the Lakers, like you can tell when Jackson Hayes is on the court, it's like 4-on-5 and he's not a shooter. Is he great for lobs?
Right.
Sure. But you look at what the Celtics did. They really took him out of the game. He's not really a rim protector by any means. And if it wasn't for Jalen Brunson getting injured, I don't see the Lakers beating the Knicks. And the Knicks have very athletic wings, which we had a lot of trouble with. And if it wasn't for a couple of calls that went our way or Jalen Brunson getting injured, we probably would have lost that game, even though it went into overtime, because we didn't have an answer for Jalen and we didn't have an answer for OG. So my concern with that is that we need to get like length and we need to get size down low in order to complement Luka and LeBron. I think it's possible because I think what people are underselling is how attractive now the Lakers look like to the rest of the NBA, because people will line up to play with Luka and LeBron because they know they're that much of a difference maker. And the fact that they're both now on the same team, I would not imagine if they're able to swing like a high profile free agent who's willing to take a team friendly deal because they want to win. Like that's very important. And if it is Kevin Durant, sure. But, I wouldn't be surprised if they're able to facilitate a trade or, a free agent comes along or whatever the case may be. I think the Lakers are attractable enough to get players that could make a difference for their team. And I just think it's going to be in the offseason. And I agree, like this season, the Lakers probably aren't going to win the championship. They're going to get real close. They're probably going to shock a couple of teams in their respective playoff bracket. But for the most part, the Lakers need to build and really take time in this offseason to do their best work in constructing a team that Luka can lead after LeBron goes, but is still competitive. And I think there are players that can do that. But this is going to be a big test for Rob Pelinka because he was able to pick up the phone and acquire Luka. But what can you do now after you have Luka? Because we still need to sign him to a long-term deal. Like
Right.
This is still kind of an audition process to sign Luka. Because imagine if it falls under for the Lakers and Luka. Now Luka's a free agent. He can go wherever he wants. And that would be bad because we gave up some pretty valuable players, or two specifically, to get Luka. And for him to walk out the door, that would be heartbreaking.
Yeah, I didn't give up that much. I mean, that's the thing I wonder about this trade is the negative repercussions. So, nowadays, back in the day when you were a free agent, you wanted to kind of go play with some of these other guys. And I don't know if the Lakers have that cachet anymore. I mean, you got an older LeBron. Yes, you can go play with Luka, but I think the Lakers are going to want like discounts for, you want to come play with us? Well, we got to sign you a little bit cheaper because, I want to bring in some more people. And when you talk about trading too, and the other question I have for you is, do you think there's going to be some animosity because the Lakers got such a good deal from Dallas getting Luka that other teams are going to be like, no, I don't really want to trade with you. So, I mean, I could see that being kind of a hindrance where teams are going to be like, no, we're not going to trade with you. You guys, took advantage of the Mavericks. We're going to go find someone else. So do you think this trade is going to have some negative repercussions throughout the GMs talking with each other?
I don't think so. And the only reason why is because Nico Harris has put himself in a predicament where the Mavericks, and I read this report the other day, that the Mavericks are at risk of potentially forfeiting games because of injury, salary caps, like thresholds that they can't get out of, and which is why they can't really get players to fill in. And I think they only dressed 7 players, I think last week, so in my opinion, like, I know people are upset that the Lakers got Luka, and I get it. If it was any other team, I'd feel the same way. But I think what everyone's upset about is Nico Harris didn't shop Luka around, if that was the thing. So everyone is upset because they didn't get an opportunity to give their best offer to acquire Luka if he was for sale. But Nico Harris went, I would say, rogue on the Dallas Mavericks and facilitated that. Like, nobody else in Dallas organization really wanted to get rid of Luka. even though there's all these reports as to why they maybe came to the decision. But if Nico Harris wasn't running rogue, so to speak, why didn't the rest of the NBA get the notice of like, hey, Luka is probably going to be dealt? What's an offer? Why did he only just approach the Lakers? And all the Lakers did was say yes. They were the ones that were approached with the offer that had Luka and whoever else. It's not like they had to include LeBron. It was just AD, Max Christie, and a first round pick in 2030. Yeah, every team would have done that. And that's not the Lakers' fault. They didn't negotiate that. That was Dallas's ask. And it was like, yeah, we can meet that. And I don't think that means that teams won't do business with the Lakers, because the Lakers didn't do anything wrong other than, yeah, sure, we'll take Luka off your hands, which is what Dallas did. I think, though, what other teams may do is they may, hold this as an example of why if star players don't do what they're supposed to, they'll cut them real quick, or maybe sign them down to make sure that they're good to go. But I think more of Dallas is the negative repercussions of this trade than the Lakers, because, again, all the Lakers did was just accept the trade. But I think the reason why people don't like the Lakers is because, when the Lakers since the 70s have been successful, and just like the Patriots, just like now with the Chiefs in the NFL, with the Warriors at certain times, like when a team gets too successful, we try to do everything we can to like bash them, bring them down, because we're tired of it. We want somebody else to win. Like it's unfair, quote unquote. But, Boston has had more championships than the Lakers. They're now like in this period of like potential dynasty if they go on and win again. And the Lakers are trying to get back to that prosperity. And I think players are attracted to the Lakers because of what they do for player brands. And again, like Charles Barkley is upset because the national media keeps talking about the Lakers. Why? Because they're one of the top 2 markets in the NBA, just like the Knicks. Like the Knicks right now are super popular because New York is such a huge market. And thankfully the Knicks are relevant because now we can talk about the Knicks. Whereas not a lot of people are talking about OKC or Cleveland or, Atlanta, because those markets aren't as big as LA and New York. Those are the kings of the mountains in terms of media and marketing. So when those two are successful, that's when media is going for it. And it seems bad because like, oh, all we do is talk about them. But when those two teams are successful, the NBA draws more eyes, draws more attention. The game with the Knicks and Lakers, one of the highest rated games. And then with the Lakers and Boston Celtics, one of the highest rated games because of those franchises.
Right. And, it's one of those things where I'm glad the Knicks are finally relevant again, but I'm just waiting for a GM to go, well, you didn't call me, and this becomes a little bit more. But the Dallas Mavericks are done. I think the curse of Luka exists. That's why they're going through this right now. Nico will not be employed at the end of the season. I would be shocked if that happened. And I don't know why the owner was doubling down on this, which made him look even stupider. But it's just, it's going to be an interesting offseason for the Los Angeles Lakers, especially to become relevant in the West again. So we'll see what happens. You guys got Luka. Let's just see if we can add around him. So it's going to be interesting to see. But here on 3 from Deep, we do talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. They let out the show. We do talk about Oklahoma City. We got the small markets here. We do talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves. So we'll see what happens. But I did hear through the grapevine that Nico did call the Timberwolves and wanted to do an Ant Edwards for Luka swap. He did call Milwaukee and then wanted to see if Giannis was available. So, I mean, he called a couple of people, but I think it was, when you make those kind of phone calls, it's kind of oh, yeah, right, you're going to really do that, sure, and, probably hung up the phone. So I think a lot of other stuff is going to come out of the wash here at the end of the season. But we're going to take a quick timeout. Normally I do my top 5, but we're going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to go on an award tour. I was thinking about Tribe Called Quest, one of my favorite groups. They got the song award tour. So I want to get your mid-season awards, or we're a little past mid-season here. But we have Rookie of the Year. We have Coach of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Sixth Man of the Year, most improved player of the year, and of course the MVP. So let's start off here. I want to hear some awards. Who do you got now? Who is your rookie of the year as of right now in the NBA?
I think everyone's rookie of the year is Castle from San Antonio. I mean, he's just killing it right now. I think he's averaging almost 20 points per game, and he's just such a pivotal part of that team. The only thing that isn't happening, and I think actually now he's a starter because of injury, but Castle has been killing it right now in San Antonio. He's going to have a really great season in the future, especially with having De'Aaron Fox on the team. I don't think Chris Paul is going to make it after the end of the season. I think he's going to go somewhere else, if anything. But, having Victor Wembanyama, having De'Aaron Fox, those players is going to do so much for Castle, and he is just a dynamite player, so explosive, really good shooter, and he's a rookie. So imagine what he's going to do with some more years in the NBA, getting the speed of the game down. I don't know how he's not everyone else's rookie of the year. The only other rookie I would say would be Dalton, but that's just because of Laker bias. He's not nearly having a successful season as Castle. Castle by far rookie of the year.
Gotcha. And he's my rookie of the year. I mean, Jaron McCain, for the Philadelphia 76ers, if he hadn't got hurt, he was having an unbelievable season, but unfortunately got hurt. But I have Castle too. I think his stock is rising. And so watch out for the Spurs. This year, yes, hurt. Not that they're tanking for flag, but I think they're going to be in that draft lottery. So it'll be interesting to see where they fall in that, because you put someone like a Cooper Flag on that team, watch out for the San Antonio Spurs. Woo.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, coach of the year. This one to me was interesting because there's a lot of great coaches out there right now. You talk about the first place OKC. You talk about first place Cleveland Cavaliers. So who do you have right now, coach of the year in the NBA?
If I were to give a midseason award, or at least at this point right now, I would probably lean towards Kenny Atkinson because of the huge improvement that the Cleveland Cavaliers have done. I mean, last year they finished 48-34. Right now they're 56-11 as of today. That's even including the loss right now to the Magic. So Cleveland Cavaliers right now, in my opinion, with that much kind of an improvement in terms of shooting, and again, what we talked about team defense, Kenny Atkinson has this team kind of rolling. And I completely understand, and I would even say, I don't believe that that's going to be coach of the year, if I'm being honest. I just think Kenny Atkinson needs to be recognized for a good coaching job that he's done. This team has the potential to improve by nearly 15 games from season to season, which I think is impressive for a previous playoff team to now be almost leading the NBA in terms of overall standings. That's very impressive to me. It's very hard to do with a competitive conference like the East, like what we've talked about. So I just want to say that maybe Kenny Atkins, just because of giving his flowers, but ultimately I think, the coach in Detroit, Brickashaw, I think that's how you pronounce his name. I think he's going to walk away with it, but I would give flowers to Atkinson, though, at the end of the year.
And I can see that. I mean, Kenny Atkinson, this is his first year as the Cleveland Cavaliers coach. But I am going to go with it's JB Bickerstaff. For the Pistons. The Pistons had 14 wins last year. I mean, they were atrocious. They were the worst team in the NBA last year. So to do what he has done, to see the resurgence and progression of Cade Cunningham, I think that has a lot to do with it. Pistons right now, 6th in the East, 37-31. To me, it is Bickerstaff's to lose. Just seeing the Detroit Pistons back is always exciting for the NBA, because, you think back at some of the bad boy Pistons and some of those, late 90s, early 2000s Pistons with Rasheed Wallace and Tayshaun Prince and those guys. Was always fun to watch. So they have completely fallen off since then. But to go from the worst team in the NBA over the last couple of years to what they're doing this year, I got to give him all kinds of props. So JB is my coach of the year right now. So it's going to be hard. And there's a lot of great coaches out there. That's what makes this probably one of the closest ones. We've had in a long time here. Defensive player of the year. Who do you got defensive player of the year right now?
This was a tough one because it's not a runaway like it's been for years, but I think Walker Kessler from the Utah Jazz needs some respect. Leads the NBA right now in rebounds, also in blocks. I think he has the total blocks ahead of everyone else as well. Steal numbers, you would like to be better, but I think that his interior presence makes a difference. And I I just don't think that there's anything exciting in Utah other than Walker. So I would say that if I had to give a defensive player of the year, it'd be him. Close second, though, would be Jaylen Brown. I think he's done really well this season, too.
Wow. I'm going to say a little bit different here. I'm going Evan Mobley for the Cleveland Cavaliers here. He's having an unbelievable season. Now that Victor Wembanyama is not here, because I think he was the consensus defensive player of the year. I think he was going to get it. No problems, no questions asked. He just didn't have, unfortunately, enough games played to be considered for it. But Evan Mobley, I'm going to put him up there. Playing phenomenal for those Cleveland Cavaliers. And he also has a little bit of an incentive receiving that defensive player of the year. If he gets that, he gets a $50 million bump in his max contract he can sign. So
there we go.
At the end of the season, he can sign a $269 million year for 5 years. So I think he wants to win that defensive player of the year because he's going to get paid for it.
Oh yeah.
So,
deservingly so too.
Yep, and I would be it'd be interesting to see that. So, sixth man, Jamal Crawford's not in the NBA anymore, so he can't win the sixth man a year. Where he was the prohibitive sixth man a year for 10 years in a row or something crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But who do you have right now as your sixth man of the year award?
So I've got one that I think is going to win it, but I have an honorable mention, and I'll tell you my honorable mention is Peyton Pritchard with Boston. I think him being a six man is a realistic possibility. He's increased his points by more than 5.2 points, I think, this season, shooting 42% from three, 48 from the field, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. But I think the actual six man of the year, who I think is going to win it, is DeAndre Hunter. This season, with combined Hawks and Cavs, is about almost 17 points per game, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 48% from the floor, 45% from 3-point range, and he's only doing it in 26 minutes. And again, he's in there with like the late lineup with the Cavs, and he's a difference maker. The game that he had against the Magic, though, where he had a poor shooting night, I don't think he's going to have very many of those. But in my opinion, like on the Hawks and right now on the Cavs, he's definitely a guy that comes in and brings them a lot of energy, a lot of good defense and shooting. So I think Hunter is a good candidate, and what I would say would be sixth man of the year.
That's a good pick. I got Malik Beasley for the Pistons. Again, the Pistons, there's a reason why they're playing well. Cade Cunningham is not just the only reason. Malik Beasley, 16.3 points per game, 2.7 rebounds, 1.7 assists coming off the bench. Got the Pistons playing well. So I have to give it to Malik. I think to see the Pistons doing what they're doing to come from the depths of the NBA to finally being relevant again has a lot to do with it, and I think he's got a good shot. But I do agree with Pritchard. I think Pritchard for the Celtics, he's making a name for himself, and I think once his contract comes up, I think somebody's going to give him a lot of money because I have a feeling that he's going to be stolen away from the Boston Celtics because he has, and that boy's got a lot of talent. So
yeah, he does.
Most improved player of the year. This is one of my little favorite ones. You know, who has shown the most improvement to you this year?
This is tough because you can say a lot of different players, should be considered for it. I think of Cade Cunningham in Detroit deserves an honorable mention for sure. Although I would say, like, if the NBA had a comeback player of the year, he would definitely fit that bill because obviously he was out last season and he's come back and he's looked every bit as an MVP for his team as ever. And honestly, like, wouldn't be surprised if he get MVP considerations this season. But I think someone that's most improved that I just see just based on statistics, and that's essentially what I'm basing off of, is Thompson out of Houston. I think it's Ahmed Thompson.
Yep.
I think he's done really well. He's averaging 15 points, and he's like a 5-5 kind of a guy. And he's improved from his rookie season and only his second year. And he's a really good defensive presence. So I think he would be my most improved just in the short span that he's done. And again, it's a small sample size, but I think that what he's doing and his play is really helping carry the Rockets, even though they're a very young team. I think Thompson for me would be most improved.
And he's one of my favorite guys on that Rockets team. He's kind of a superstar in the making. I can see him in the next 2-3 years really becoming you almost say the face of the NBA, but really he being well known. Because right now the Rockets are back up in second, with the Lakers slipping back a little bit here. That young upstart Rockets team back up in second. But mine, forget statistics and everything. I'm just going by the eye test. Cade Cunningham, I got to give it to him. Being on the worst team in the NBA, you were a first round draft pick. You were probably considered and really considered a bust over the last few years. So for him to turn that around and not fail from it and just turn around and try to be better, he has improved immensely. He's got the Detroit Pistons relevant again. So I got to give it to him because it's so easy to get beat up, and especially when you're a first round pick and you don't live up to expectations. How many first round picks that never lived up to expectations aren't even in the NBA anymore? So for him to turn that around, come back from being injured last year, to have the year that he's having right now, hands down, just a phenomenal story. So I'm giving it to Cade. That's mine. And the hardest one right now is the MVP. And first question I want to ask before we get to your MVP right now is, how much do you think and how much do you weigh record into whether somebody wins the MVP?
Well, here's what's tough is, in my opinion, like the NBA MVP award is turning into like, who's able to get their team the furthest in the playoffs, but we only evaluate the regular season. And if that was the case, if it was truly a regular season award, then just like what you were saying with Cade Cunningham, we need to evaluate what players are bringing the most value to that team in the regular season. Right. There's an argument for then LeBron should be higher on the list. There's an argument for Cade Cunningham more so than Shai Gilgeous or Jokic or Giannis even. But I mean, I think what the NBA has turned into now is, if the NBA MVP award is about best player on a team who can get their team the furthest, I would respect that like ruling over like, oh, it's a regular season award, because then there's like 10 other people that we might say like deserve this award over Jokic, over name said player. You know what I mean? Like Tyrese Maxey then should be the MVP just because how valuable he is to the Sixers with what they're going through right now. But I think, unfortunately, like the NBA is not taking only regular season. They are incorporating the playoffs in it, which I think does sway. But if I'm looking at MVP, I'm definitely seeing like what the best player on the team is doing for their team. Because, like, for example, Westbrook won the MVP. I can't remember what season it was ago. I think it was like the 2014 season or 2013 season. I think Westbrook won the MVP because he averaged a triple-double. But the Thunder at the time when he was doing that were barely like 42-40. Like they barely got into the playoffs, and we were really evaluating like how valuable that was in comparison to LeBron at the time, where when he was out, Cleveland, I think, was 0-8 or something of that nature. And it's like, legitimately, that's probably more of an MVP because he also led them further in the playoffs than the Thunder. So if I had to give an MVP, I'm going Shai, not only for the record, but what he's doing statistically in this season and what he's been consistently doing as a guard who's shooting, passing, handles. Like Shai Gilgeous is the reason why the Thunder are as successful as they are, with injury, by the way, because Chet Holmgren just came back like a couple weeks ago. He's still getting up to speed with the game. Shai Gilgeous has won them games single-handedly with performances, multiple great performances throughout the season that you can put a staple on and say, yep, that's when we knew the Thunder were for real. Yep, that's when we knew the Thunder were for real. So I would say Shai, and yes, maybe the record does put me in that direction, but also too, like what Shai is doing is even better than what he did last season. And he was, I think, the second place runner-up in the MVP. So by history, he should be now the MVP with better statistics than last year.
Right. Yeah. He's, number one here in points per game, 33 points per game. They have the second best record in the NBA. So, I mean, you can't take that away from Shai. To me, it is kind of ended up to be a two-man race. I got my crack image tab here, my MVP.
I love your graphic.
I got to put my graphics up here because, that's kind of the budget I have right now. So, I had Jalen Brunson up there too. I think I had LeBron James up there too, because first and second right now is Joker and SGA.
Right.
Right now you also have, my third was at one point Brunson until he got hurt. I also had LeBron up in there because of what he was doing, especially with the Lakers not having much, or the Lakers, really being injured a lot too, because when he was playing and they had AD was hurt. So he was doing a lot of that all the time. You have Giannis up in there now, who I think with Brunson and LeBron now being hurt, I think Giannis comes back to kind of third. But I am choosing Joker. I mean, right now, Joker is playing unbelievable basketball for that Denver Nuggets team, averaging a triple-double. So, when you look at the dad bod god, Nikola Jokic, averaging 29.1, 12.8, 10.3 assists per game, 57% shooting. Excuse me. That is a phenomenal stat line for him. And the Denver Nuggets are right there, third right now in the West. So, I mean, it's not like they have, yes, they haven't won 50 games, but I think they're going to win there. But when I talk about importance to a team, Nikola Jokic is the Denver Nuggets. Without him, the Denver Nuggets are the worst team or one of the worst teams in the West, period.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
But for him to be averaging a triple-double, especially almost 30 points a game, triple-double is, for someone that plays the type of game that he does, to me is astounding. It is a historic season, and it's hard to look past that because, yes, record-wise, he's leading in points. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the MVP voting really is a popularity contest too in the NBA. It's who's the most popular guy, so you pick him. I think, Joker's going to take a little bit of a hit because he's won it before, and that's one of the things that happens in the NBA that I don't like. It's the Jordan rules of the MVP. You can give it to him every year, and I think that's what hurt LeBron so many years too.
Yeah,
is you could have gave it to him literally every year for a 12, 15-year span.
Or Kobe when he was around,
you can't give it to him every year because it just doesn't look good if we give it to him every year. It's going to be boring. So I think that's going to be the only thing that hurts Joker is he's because he has won this before. People are going to kind of look past that a little bit. To me, it's more than just record. Of course,
Right.
You don't want an MVP on a losing team. But, look at what he means to that team, the most valuable player to that team. OKC is filled with a lot of great players on that team. I think they could survive and be a 7th or 8th place team without SGA on that team. The Nuggets are nothing without
Jokic. Yeah.
Jokic. So for me, I got to go with Jokic. I think it's going to come down to those two guys head to head. I mean, flip a coin. They're both having phenomenal seasons. They're both super important to their team. They're both popular too. So, even though Denver's not a big market and OKC's not a big market, the other thing too is, I talked about it earlier, Jason Tatum having a MVP season for those Boston Celtics. He may win a second chip, but yet he's never considered to be an elite player, which always boggles my mind why he's not there. So I don't know if it's because Jaylen Brown's there, it's the Celtics and, there's a prejudice with that. So
sure.
But right now, 2-man race, I'm excited to see what happens, and it's going to be exciting to see what happens here too. So I appreciate you jumping in here with me with the award tour. Thank you so much. And then now we're going to get back into some action. We're going to jump into the layup line. My little, I kind of do at the end of the show here. I like to just do my little quick stories here. So First one, I'm going to hit the story and then I'm going to ask you a question on it here. Steve Kerr just became the all-time winningest coach for Golden State. His 558th victory Saturday night, of course, beat my New York Knicks 97-94. Does that put Steve Kerr in the halls of the greatest coaches? When you talk about, some of the Pat Rileys and, some of those big name coaches here, what are your thoughts about him hitting that record for Golden State? And do you put him as one of the greatest coaches of all time?
I do. So I think in less than 900 games, he's won 588. He's got almost a 650 win percentage. That's higher than Pat Riley, Greg Popovich, Doc Rivers, Eric Spoelstra, Chuck Daly, and Jerry Sloan. So he's 15th all time in terms of win percentage with what he has today. And he's number 1 in playoff win percentage with 4 championships, all with the Warriors, but in 3 different iterations. And I think people forget this. The first championship he won was when the Splash Brothers were really young. The second one was with KD. And of course, they were just a juggernaut of a team. Right. Well, he won 2 with that team. And then the third one was when the Warriors were kind of older, injury prone. They had a lot of adversity kind of in that season where they beat Boston. And that was a great coaching clinic by Steve Kerr by himself. So yeah, I think Steve Kerr is like one of the top NBA coaches of all time because of what he's done in such a short amount of time. And the Warriors are still relevant. Like they've only had one season where it was an under 500 season. And that was the year that there was only 60 games with COVID and all that stuff. But that was because Steph Curry was out with an injury all year. Right. So they really weren't a great team. But every year that he's had Steph or he's coached that Warriors team, they've been in the playoffs or in the play-ins and numerous championships, not only in the Eastern Conference, but in the NBA finals. So yeah, Steve Kerr, in my opinion, is one of the top coaches ever in the history of the NBA.
I definitely have to put him up there. But it's tough too, because, you know, a lot of these great coaches are attached to the hip with a superstar. You know, look at Phil Jackson. He had Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen. He also had Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal. You know, you look at Pat Riley, you know, some of the guys in the Lakers, who he had for the Heat. He had Dwayne Wade and Shaq. So, I mean, Steph Curry, you know, you got him at the hip, and you had Klay Thompson, you had Draymond Green. So it's interesting to see how these great coaches who are in their own respect, because, you know, winning to me is harder being a coach than losing being a coach, because you have, normally if you're winning like that, you have bigger expectations, you have bigger superstars, you have bigger egos to manage. So to me, I think sometimes being that type of coach and coaching those winning teams is a little bit more difficult, but I definitely got to put Steve Kerr up there. But he owes a lot of that to Mr. Stephen Curry, who to me, I believe is top 10 all time. Yeah. For him, he is phenomenal. So second one here, getting into the layup here, my man, Jalen Brunson. They just announced he's going to be out in another week to 2 weeks. That hurts as a Knicks fan. I want him to come back, but I want him to come back healthy. So I'm hoping he can get back in time towards the end of the season where he can get his game legs back under him. I'd hate for him to kind of start in the playoffs. And I know that sometimes that's tough. So do you think this is going to hurt the playoff run for the New York Knicks, him being out another 2 weeks and getting closer to the playoffs?
Well, here's the thing. If the Knicks hold to the third position, which is where they're at now, and the playoffs started today, they'd play the Pistons. And I would be concerned because the Pistons, again, are rolling with history and with momentum, and I would be concerned. However, if the Knicks fall to 4, which is a possibility because right now they have a 4-game lead over Milwaukee, let's just assume they kind of swap spots because, again, Jalen Brunson's out, and let's say Milwaukee just gets on a run. Then they're in the 4th spot and they go against the Pacers. And I like that matchup for the Knicks a little bit more because I feel like when Brunson is healthy with Cat going against like a Miles Turner, I like that matchup as like an entry into like getting into the playoff groove a little bit. But I would say, I think that there's enough talent on the Knicks defensively to where they can win games based on defense. They don't need anyone that's going to score 45 like Brunson, but if Thibodeau can just find a way to do really good with preserving the starters and not overworking them, which he's known to do, I think when Jalen Brunson gets back, I think he's talented enough to where he can get in game shape pretty quickly, but still be a force when it comes to being on the offensive side. Because Jalen Brunson is too talented not to come back and be dominant. Let's just be honest. He's such a good undersized guard with the shooting ability, his handles, how quick he is. I mean, he is kind of like another version of Steph Curry. And I agree. Like, if it wasn't for him getting injured, he might be in the running for MVP just because how talented he is. But I would say if Cat can put the load on his shoulders, like what he did in Minnesota, where he goes back to that variation of Cat, and also OG Anunoby, if he can step up as well scoring, I really think that the Knicks with those two could get by and win some games that are winnable and compete against some of the higher competition. And I know it doesn't help that you guys, I think, are like 0-9, I guess, against teams that are in the playoffs and have a pretty poor record against over 500 teams. But I think with the defense that they play and the team scoring, now it's not just one guy. Maybe you get everyone involved. I think that can come across and actually surprise a couple of teams who maybe aren't expecting like Cat to go off tonight. Maybe Mikal Bridges going off tonight.
Right.
Whoever else, OG going off tonight. I think that there is a world where the Knicks can survive, maintain the third spot. Because again, they've got a 4-game lead and all they have to do is go 500 during the stretch with Jalen Brunson out. And they maintain that even if the Bucks go on some hot run, they still have the Knicks would still have a better record than the Bucks. So I think there's a world where, New York can hold tight, but it's going to take a team. Like we really need everyone to step up and score now because Jalen Brunson isn't here to drop 45 anymore. It's going to take everyone to pull their weight in and to get better.
And I hope so, because I'm more nervous about the Pacers with Siakam and Halliburton. I think they have a dangerous squad. I'd rather go against the Pistons, who haven't been in the playoffs for I can't even remember how many years. So I think getting our game legs would be better against the Pistons. So I'm hoping for that third spot too. And another little layup here on Friday night. And this is becoming a big thing here. Oklahoma City sat a ton of their starters here, and the NBA is investigating that because, of course, they have this player participation policy. Where are you on a load management in the NBA, and do you find it kind of wrong that the NBA has to get involved and do these kind of policies to force teams to play their players?
I find it crazy that teams are abusing like the load management to where the NBA has to put in rules to negate it. Like I guess maybe because when I watched basketball when I was growing up, like it was rare for a star not to play. Like injuries are different, but like if you're hurt and you can go, you play. Like Allen Iverson, when was the last time you heard that he missed a game because of load management? Never heard of it. Kobe Bryant, same way. Yes, never heard of it. It wasn't until and I don't want to point the finger at Greg Popovich, but he kind of was the pioneer to kind of start it when the, San Antonio Spurs were kind of rolling during their dynasty. They preserved Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker. And it worked to some respect. And then, LeBron piggybacked on it. And then, a lot of other teams started doing it. But if there's a great example of it does not work is look at Joel Embiid with the 76ers. There's not a other superstar that has load managed as much as Joel Embiid, and he's still out for the year because of a knee injury. And I think he only played like 22 games this season or some super low number. So it's not like it makes you stay on the court that much longer. And if anything, there's studies that kind of go opposed to the idea of like resting prevents injury. Actually, it looks like that it's causing more injury because your body just can't stop for several days of not being used to then all of a sudden go full force into like a high impact game. It needs to maintain that type of high impact to maintain its strength and its endurance and all that stuff. So, you sit in players for a game or two because you're preserving their health. You actually might lead them to an injury later on because now their body is having to be shocked with high intensity that it's not prepared for. So I absolutely hate load management. Like, if it's like an injured player that's like coming back on minutes restriction, that's different. But you mean to tell me that like Shea Gilgeous or Chet Holmgren or Jalen Williams are sitting because, it's load management? Aren't they like 24 years old? What do they need to sit for? Like they're extremely young. They should be able to go 3 overtimes before they're getting tired, LeBron load managing sometimes kind of bothers me because he's so like, oh yeah, no, take care of my body. And yet he'll sit on a random like primetime game because he just didn't feel like it today. And it's like Jordan would never, Kobe would never. No. And I think that's some of the things that with this modern NBA players is unfortunately we're going to end up in a world where we're not playing 82 games anymore. We're probably going to go to 72, maybe 70 flat.
Right.
We already got awards that are contingent on how many games you play.
Right.
So imagine if Shea Gilgeous or Jokic or Giannis didn't play the 65 minimum. Who are we giving the MVP trophy to then? Are we really giving it to Cade Cunningham just because he played 2 extra games more than Jokic?
Right.
Like, that's kind of like where the NBA is at, all because of load management, and it drives me nuts.
Right. And I can see that too. And then to me, it's a delicate subject because the NBA looks at it completely differently. They don't look at it by, preserving the game or the integrity of the game. They're looking at it as I got a primetime game. I need my superstars. I need eyeballs watching.
Right.
You have people that are spending $100 to $500 plus a ticket to come watch LeBron James, to come see you, and then you sit out because of load management. Well, then that customer is not going to come back. So to me, it's a little dirty. There's a weird in between here, because then you get like, when Kawhi Leonard would have these mysterious injuries. So, all of a sudden an injury would pop up. So that's the other thing too, is you run the risk of, all of a sudden, hey, I'm nursing a hamstring or I'm nursing this. Sure. And then all of a sudden, are they really, is that just kind of load management? So this is a slippery slope for the NBA, because their reasoning for it is essentially greed.
Yeah.
And the team's reason for it is, hey, I'm trying to rest my player because I want to make sure that he's healthy for the playoffs. So you have these two things colliding. So it's just interesting. It's amazing that we have to even talk about it nowadays, but it is a big deal because there's a lot of money involved. So, the answer to every question right now is money. So, but I appreciate you participating in the layup line here. Before I get you out of here, I do have to say, Vio con Dios, we had unfortunately a couple passings in the NBA this past week here. The big O, Oliver Miller, played 9 seasons in the NBA, passed away at 54, lost his battle to cancer. Arkansas star, had some great seasons in the NBA, and he passed away, unfortunately. And then Donald Slick Watts, 73, was a Sonics icon. So that Seattle Supersonics team, which I hope we get to see at some point in time, them come back, because I believe Oklahoma City allowed the Sonics to get their history and rights back. So if Seattle does have a team come back to there, they could be the Sonics again, which is fantastic. So unfortunately, a couple of passings in the NBA here, but you're still with us, Cody. I appreciate you being here with me today, man. Let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, so if anyone's interested in checking out Drew Code Sports Talk, we're on YouTube here, so very easily you could just go in the search bar, put in Drew Code Sports Talk, it'll land on us, subscribe, we really appreciate it. We're also on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on Facebook. You name the social media platform, we're probably on it. So anytime you look interested or curious, just go to Drew Code Sports Talk and you will find us. And we really hope we get people to follow us and follow along the journey. And, I like to invite Jason on because he has a lot of good takes on NBA. And I think I'm going to have you come on pretty quickly, because there's some topics here that you wrote down that I didn't really get some answers out of you. So I really want to get your opinion on certain things of it. So and then also too, like we've had Michael on, I've guest appeared on other things, but Drew Code Sports Talk is where you can find us, and always honored to be invited on 3 from Deep, because this is my favorite NBA podcast show.
I appreciate that, man. And I love having you here, guys. If you have not jumped on, check Cody Johnson out, Drew Code Sports Talk, man. A lot of great information, a lot of great content. I appreciate you being on here, man. That's a great way to spend a Monday afternoon. Thank you so much, Cody. And I will check you later, man.
Appreciate you, dude.
Peace. Guys, thank you all very much for joining me. This has been 3 from Deep. I am your host, Jason Calenzo. We will be back on Wednesday at 12 o'clock. Of course, we are 3 from Deep 3 times a week. And the NBA season just heating up, guys. So be ready. Peace. We'll see you on Wednesday.